Chris Heyman was a man defined by his solitude. His life was a cycle of quiet routines, and the small, dimly lit apartment he called home reflected his introspection and reclusiveness. His work, while unique, didn't demand much from him socially. As a communication technician, he facilitated email exchanges between Earth-based organizations and their counterparts in space. It was a niche job, but one that allowed him to live his life largely in isolation. Chris rarely stepped outside unless absolutely necessary. Over time, his loneliness gave way to an unusual fascination and obsession with alien women. This wasn't a casual interest in extraterrestrial life, but an intense and personal fixation on the idea of forming a connection, even a romantic one, with a female alien. His bedroom walls were a shrine to this obsession, covered in colorful posters of alien women, their features exotic yet alluring, a blend of fantasy and longing. Chris often spent his free time crafting detailed lists about what he would do if he ever met an alien woman in real life. Despite these vivid fantasies, Chris's reality was grim. He was acutely aware of his growing social anxiety and peculiar habits. The small holes he had drilled into his walls, which he claimed were for ventilation to prevent dampness, didn't help his reputation. Friends who visited found the holes unsettling and couldn't help but wonder if there was more to Chris's story than he let on. One evening, as Chris sorted through the monotonous stream of work-related emails, a message in his inbox caught his attention. The sender was a woman, or at least, someone claiming to be. Her name was Mia, and her message was startling. "Chris, I've been watching you for a long time. I know about your work, your interests, and even your dreams. I want to meet you in person. If you're willing to have me, I'd like to come to your home tomorrow evening and stay with you for a while." Varsalin Metankrais read and reread the email, his hands trembling. The possibility that Mia could be an alien, a real alien woman reaching out to him, set his heart racing. It felt too good to be true, yet the message was specific, personal, and seemed genuine. For Chris, this was the culmination of years of fantasy. He replied immediately, providing his address and expressing his excitement. Later that night, unable to contain his joy, Chris shared the news with his few remaining friends. Their responses were predictably skeptical. "Chris, you need help," one friend said bluntly. "This isn't real. You're letting your obsession get the better of you." Another added, "You've always been different, but this is too much. Please, talk to someone before this gets worse." Chris's joy turned to anger. His friends didn't understand. They couldn't. Their doubts felt like betrayal, and he decided to cut them out of his life entirely. He didn't need them. He had Mia now. The next day, Chris awoke early and set about preparing his apartment for Mia's arrival. He meticulously cleaned each room, rearranged furniture, and adjusted the alien posters on his walls. He stared at the small holes he had drilled in his bedroom walls, debating whether to cover them up. When he realized it was too late to fix them, he decided they would be easy enough to explain if Mia asked. By the time evening arrived, Chris was a bundle of nerves. He paced back and forth, rehearsing what he would say when Mia arrived. Despite his excitement, he couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at him. Years of living as a recluse had left him ill-equipped to handle social interactions, let alone with someone he idolized. At precisely 7 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Chris froze, his heart pounding. He hesitated for a moment before rushing to answer. Standing on his doorstep was Mia. She was stunning, far surpassing even his wildest dreams. Her features were otherworldly yet familiar, her luminous skin and strikingly symmetrical face blending beauty and mystery in a way that left Chris speechless. "Hello, Chris," she said warmly. "My name is Mia. It's so nice to finally meet you." Chris stammered, barely able to form a coherent sentence. "Mia. I'm Chris. Nice to meet you, too." Mia smiled, her expression patient and kind. Chris invited Mia inside, gesturing toward his living room. She stepped in and glanced around, taking in the cluttered space, the alien posters, and most curiously, the holes in the walls. "You have an interesting home," she remarked, her tone neutral but curious. Chris flushed, feeling self-conscious. I like to decorate. The holes are. Well, they're for ventilation, to prevent dampness. Mia raised an eyebrow but didn't press the issue. Instead, she turned her attention to the posters. Who are these? Chris hesitated, his mind scrambling for an explanation. They're my ex-girlfriends, he lied. I keep their pictures up to remind myself of them. You know, in case they try to come back into my life. It's a way of staying strong. Mia's expression shifted slightly, her initial warmth giving way to a flicker of unease. She nodded politely but seemed unconvinced. The evening wore on, and Chris gradually became more comfortable around Mia. He made her coffee and asked about her journey, his curiosity outweighing his awkwardness. Mia, for her part, remained patient, though she couldn't shake the odd feeling the apartment gave her. When she asked again about the wall holes, Chris replied cryptically, "If you're curious, try reaching into one before bed. You might be surprised." Mia laughed softly but didn't respond. Later that night, as Chris dozed off, Mia approached one of the holes again. Her curiosity had only grown since the first encounter, though the sensation she felt earlier had left her unsettled. The quiet hum of the room and Chris's faint snores in the background created an eerie stillness. Taking a deep breath, Mia crouched in front of the hole and examined it closely. The edges were rough, clearly hand-drilled, and led into darkness. She could feel a faint draft coming from within. Ventilation, she muttered skeptically to herself. Determined to uncover the truth, Mia extended her hand inside once more. This time, she moved her fingers slowly, carefully brushing against the interior surface. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, suddenly, the same soft, warm sensation returned, but this time, it lingered. It wasn't just a touch. It felt like something alive was on the other side, pressing back against her fingers. Startled but refusing to panic, Mia leaned closer, trying to peer inside. She whispered softly, "Hello, is something there?" The warmth retreated, leaving only the cold emptiness of the hole. Mia's heart pounded. She glanced over her shoulder to make sure Chris was still asleep. He stirred slightly but didn't wake. "Okay, let's see what's really going on here," she said, more to herself than anyone else. Activating her telekinetic abilities subtly, Mia reached out with her mind to probe beyond the hole. She felt the structure of the wall, the wood, the plaster, the layers of paint, and then something else. Something that wasn't part of the apartment. It was organic. Mia withdrew her power immediately, a chill running down her spine. She wasn't alone in the apartment. Mia sat on the edge of the couch, debating her next move. She could confront Chris directly, but his erratic behavior so far made her hesitant. Instead, she decided to wait until morning, hoping to gather more information before making her decision. At dawn, Chris awoke to find Mia sitting at the kitchen table, her expression unreadable. He greeted her nervously, sensing that something was wrong. "Good morning," Mia said evenly. "Did you sleep well?" Chris nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, I guess. You?" Mia's gaze didn't waver. "Not really. I had some strange experiences last night. I couldn't stop thinking about those holes in your walls." Chris froze, his face paling. "The holes?" "I told you, they're for ventilation." Mia leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Chris, I'm not stupid. There's something behind those walls, isn't there? Something alive." Chris's reaction was immediate and panicked. "No, I mean, what are you talking about?" "There's nothing alive in there." His voice cracked, betraying his fear. Mia stood, her presence commanding. "Chris, I felt it. I know there's something behind those walls. You need to tell me the truth, now." For a moment, Chris looked as though he might deny it again. Then, under Mia's intense gaze, he broke. It's not what you think," he stammered. "I didn't mean for it to be this way. It's just ... an experiment. I was curious." Mia's patience was wearing thin. "Curious about what?" "What's in the walls, Chris?" He hesitated before blurting out. "They single quotes receptors for signals. I thought if I could connect directly with extraterrestrial energy, maybe I could communicate better. Mia crossed her arms, and the warmth I felt. The thing that touched me, Chris looked down, shame washing over him. I don't know, sometimes I feel it too. It started happening a few weeks ago. I thought it was you, or someone like you, trying to reach out. But I swear, I didn't know it was alive. Mia's expression softened slightly, though she remained on guard. If you're telling the truth, Chris, then we need to find out what's really going on. Mia approached the wall again, this time fully prepared to use her abilities. With a wave of her hand, the section of the wall around the hole disintegrated, revealing a hollow cavity behind it. Inside, something shifted. The creature was small, no larger than a cat, with a translucent, glowing body that shimmered like liquid silver. Its movements were slow and deliberate as it emerged from the shadows, blinking luminous, multifaceted eyes at Mia and Chris. Chris gasped, stumbling backward. What is that? Mia crouched down, her tone calm but firm. It's some kind of life form. It's been living in your walls, Chris. The creature tilted its head, seemingly unafraid. It emitted a soft, melodic hum that resonated through the room. Chris stared, a mix of awe and fear on his face. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know it was there. Mia extended her hand, and the creature hesitated before gliding closer. Its body pulsed faintly as it communicated through vibrations and tones, a language Mia could only partially understand. It's scared, she said softly. It's been hiding here, feeding off the electromagnetic energy from your equipment. Chris sank into a chair, overwhelmed. Is it dangerous? Mia shook her head. No, but it's fragile. If you had kept drilling holes, you could have hurt it or worse. Chris's guilt was palpable. What do we do now? Mia considered the creature for a moment before responding. It can't stay here. It doesn't belong in an environment like this. I'll take it with me. My people can help it find a safe place. Chris's heart sank. You're leaving, just like that? Mia turned to him, her expression softening. Chris, you're not ready for this kind of connection, not with me, not with anything beyond Earth. You have a good heart, but you need to focus on yourself first. Learn to live in your own world before trying to bridge the gap to another. Chris looked down, tears brimming in his eyes. I ruined everything, didn't I? Mia placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't ruin anything. You just need time to grow. Take care of yourself. Chris, maybe one day we'll meet again. With that, Mia cradled the glowing creature in her arms and stepped out of the apartment. Chris watched her go, the weight of her words sinking in. For the first time, he realized the depth of his isolation and the steps he needed to take to overcome it. As the door closed, Chris sat alone in his small apartment. The alien posters seemed less vibrant, the room quieter than ever. But amidst the silence, a spark of determination flickered within him. Mia's visit had been a wake-up call, a glimpse of the life he could have if he worked to overcome his fears and insecurities. For now, though, he had only his thoughts and the faint hum of the stars above to keep him company.